Hello friends, it's Kayla. Sometimes I have weird video concepts where I select my TBR in an obscure way and then I read a weird selection of books and then I post the video and you watch it and it's great. Sometimes I come up with a video concept that isn't great or it doesn't go the way that I wanted and then I cancel it. So today we're going to explore 5 of those. Not every video idea is a winner. Sometimes it's just not the right time. Sometimes it doesn't go as perfectly as I wanted. Sometimes I lose sight of the concept altogether. So we're going to talk through quickly what some of my ideas were, maybe why I canceled the idea, what some of the selections were going to be. And then throughout the next week, I'm gonna read a book from each video concept, at least one from each video concept, and I'll show you some footage. I'll talk you through a little more of the behind the scenes and like how the video failed. So my first one, since like 2017, I've been trying to do a video where I complete a BuzzFeed list. That has been one of my like initial weird video concepts since the beginning of when I started doing weird video concepts. I love finding lists online of books that fit into a certain theme, or like all the books you're supposed to read before you're this age, or of all the books in this genre, these are the ones that you would love. I have found ways to integrate that in other video concepts over the years, but I've never gone back to, I don't think, the original concept of like completing an entire list of something. But the thing about this video idea is I film the intro all the time. I've filmed probably 10 because I love the reaction portion so much. Like, I want you to be along with me for finding out what my TBR is going to be. So I just turn on the camera anytime that a list pops up that I think might be conducive to a video. Spoiler alert, it never has been. But my favorite one was one where I found a list of just like the best thrillers. All the thrillers that everyone should read before they die. I don't remember the actual title. We'll look back on the footage together later. But I think there was only 2 books on the entire list that I hadn't read, of a list of like, I don't know, 20 to 30 titles, I think. And I could still go through with that video. Like, for some people, having already read the books is like an interesting concept on its own, and talking through your opinion on that list. But for me, in trying to just like build a TBR, there wasn't much to choose from. There was one book on the list though that actually was on my TBR, so I just went ahead and bought it, and that's Rebecca. And then there was one other book on that list that I just purchased specifically for this canceled video, so we'll find that out together later in the video. But I for sure am finally reading Rebecca, and over the last like year, every time someone has recommended me reading Rebecca, in the back of my head I've been like, yes, and I will, but I'm gonna save it for this video because I knew I was gonna do a follow-up videos I canceled episode. If you haven't seen the first one, it's right here. The next video I canceled, I have been filming for probably 2 years. Every time I rewatch an old favorite movie, I record part of me watching it when a book shows up in that movie, because I've had this video concept for so long that's reading the books that are featured in my favorite movies. Some movies I already know the book that's in it that I want to probably read, and some movies I rewatch and I'm just like keeping my eye out because I'm like, if any book shows up in this movie, I'll add it to this like list of someday I'll make this video. At the end of the day, I canceled this one just because all the books that showed up, like, I don't want to read. And in some cases, some of the books that showed up weren't even real books. A couple examples are Crazy Stupid Love. When I was rewatching that, I was like, oh, the Scarlet Letter was featured in this movie. That's cool. And then I remembered it's also featured in one of my favorite movies, Easy A. It like all revolves around the Scarlet Letter. And so I watched more movies and waited for more things to pop up, and they just kept being classics, which makes sense. And if I really thought the video concept through, I would have realized that, like, obviously, if I'm thinking about movies that I watched in high school and then they feature high school students, they're going to be reading the types of books you read in high school, which are classics. Another one is Donnie Darko, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I knew that there was a book in it, and then I realized that it's not a real book. I haven't actually rewatched this one, but I looked up like, what was that book in Donnie Darko? And then it was like this time travel book that obviously isn't real because the movie isn't based in reality. And then actually the movie that inspired this whole video concept was Drive Me Crazy, which I haven't rewatched yet, but I think I might this week with my channel members, because I'm pretty certain that that is where I initially heard of the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. I have this memory of Melissa Joan Hart and her dad on a hot air balloon or in a blimp. Maybe I'm remembering the scene from The Weekenders with Tino and his dad. But I know that this is a thing in the media that I consumed growing up. And I always wondered like what it was. The thing with coming up with video ideas like this is there's a certain expectation on the video. And so if I watched all of these movies and I came up with this TBR and the Scarlet Letter was on it and I just didn't want to read the Scarlet Letter, but then everybody would come out of the woodwork who's a fan of the Scarlet Letter and comment on the video and be like, this video would have been so much better if you actually read the book that showed up the most, because it would have followed the video concept the best. But for me, I'm just looking through all these movies looking for books that I actually want to read, which is fine, but it's not like the ultimate way that the concept could be fulfilled. And so I'm already starting out with a sense of like failure. So I canceled it. Next up is my most recent video to be canceled, and that I actually talked about. So there are probably some people out there wondering like whatever happened to that video and when is it coming out? And that's reading books that are set near me, set in my town. Prior to a couple months ago, I had never read a book that was set where I live. In fact, it's extremely difficult to even find authors based where I live. So I scoured the internet for book lists and I found some things and I bought some things. And I'll talk through more of this later and share some footage, but I stopped filming immediately after reading the first book because this gave me everything that I was looking for. This is The Lost Ones by Sheena Kamal. We read it for the Literally Dead book club, and it was selected partially because I knew that portions of it were set here, small town BC, outside of Kelowna. And this was such a fun reading experience. I talked about it in the live show that like reading somebody talking about driving down a street that you've been on and stopping at a restaurant near you and feeling that like familiarity with descriptions, like this was such a cool experience. And then I didn't need it anymore. There was a lot more to the video concept as well. Like I wanted to pick up, and I did buy and return like a $40 cookbook about like cooking with local fruits. And then I also wanted to read from like local First Nations authors. And then I also wanted to highlight some like indie authors. Yeah. This is called Anna's Secret. It's by Blossom Turner. You're probably thinking, why? What? And I'm gonna read this week. Something that I realized after I already picked up the books is that I don't actually know how much of the story, if any, is actually set here. Just because you pick up from an author who's local to an area, which is great, like let's support local authors, that was a part of it. But then the video concept got lost because I was like, what if I read this and it's not set here? And it could so easily not be set here. But I also wanted to highlight my local indie bookstore, and I wanted to take you around and give you a tour of the Okanagan, and then the valley got filled with smoke because of the summer fires. And then my last two concepts are related because I'm always looking for ways to highlight other booktubers. Like in this video, I think I mentioned like 200 booktubers. In these videos, I talk about booktubers with similar taste and I read favorites. So one of my ideas that I don't think I actually started filming, so I won't have any footage of this one, but it was reading the favorite books of people who have done videos about my favorite books. I feel so incredibly honored that people have made videos about me. Like it's a completely wild concept that somebody would want to read a suggestion of mine or a favorite of mine. Sometimes it goes well for them, sometimes it doesn't. It's always a funny experience. So the initial thought was I will take those people and I will then read their favorite books as a thank you, as a shout out, whatever. And this video always fell apart every time that I wanted to do it because there's something very like cringy and narcissistic and like overindulgent about even talking about this. The thing is, if you already don't like me, which is fine, and you think that I'm an overhyped booktuber, seeing me then featured in other people's content, like choosing to not subscribe to me and then seeing me still pop up in your subscription box because other people are talking about me, I feel like that makes you dislike me even more and see me as even more overhyped. So then me going that like third step and highlighting those videos about me is just, it's too much. So then it was like a year later that I was like, okay, here's what I'll do while still highlighting those people and appreciating those people. What I'll do is not talk about that concept at all, about them featuring me, so now I'm featuring them, but by copying their TBRs and like buddy reading with them without them knowing it, and like that's what could be fun. I've done this before with following other booktubers TBR, but I did it in like 2 parts. So at the beginning of the month I watched a bunch of TBRs and then picked somebody, and at the end of the month you just like saw my review for the books that I read based on them. But in this one it was going to be a secret. So I was going to watch the TBRs. I decided to do this in March. Watch everyone's TBRs, like pick the books that I was interested in, follow along with their Goodreads, like keep an eye on everything that they're talking about on all their social medias, and always be reading something from this group of like 5 to 10 people. This is one of those video concepts that evolved a couple different times. Initially it failed because the people that I was keeping an eye out for just like didn't post TBRs that month or didn't update their reading for the first like week of the month, and I was like, okay, so to salvage this video and still copy some other booktubers, I will just pick like people who read like me, people who I have things in common with. And what happened here was a lot of them just like weren't updating. And then I got really bummed out because I canceled the video halfway through the month. I like officially gave up on it. I hadn't read anything. And near the end of the month, they all read things that I would have copied. So what I'm gonna do to salvage both of these ideas is like combine them. So the people that I was trying to emulate, I'm gonna try out some of their favorites from the month of March. The one that I obviously have and that I picked up recently is Gabby's favorite, The Maidens. But I'll talk you through those a little bit more as the vlog continues. So now we get to start reading. We're gonna hang out for the next week-ish while I get through as many of these titles as I can and salvage some of the concepts and show you some more stuff.
Oh, yeah, you my sunshine mixed with a little hurricane. White hot angel with the daredevil's brainless feeling. I just can't fight it. You know all the ways I like it. My north, give myself, give my east, give my west. When you see me at my worst, try to make me feel my best. This love, we can't deny it. Yeah, you know all the ways I like it. Yeah, you know how.
Good morning. I'm ready to begin my reading for the week. It's a very gloomy day. If you're new here, I not only talk about the challenge, but I also use these vlogs to just chronicle my life. I'm in a very transitional period in my life, so you're also in the unemployment era. The first week of that was spent watching a lot of TV, sleeping in until 8. It was a good time. This week, I'm taking charge of my life and I'm getting onto a schedule. When I say unemployed, we have to keep in mind that I still put in like 30 to 40 hours a week into YouTube, and I know that I could easily stretch that out and make it my entire like work day. While working full-time in an office, I would make my time count so much more because I only had a couple hours like after work to get everything done for BookTube and Bookstagram and my book club and book talk and updating Goodreads and emails and all the things that are involved. And I would like to still keep that in a specific portion of my day. So today I woke up, I made coffee, I made breakfast right away, I did the school drop off, and I just set a video to export, and now I have 1 hour. So what I'm gonna do all week long is as soon as I do the school drop off, I am going to go on an hour-long walk or hike. I feel like I only have maybe a month until it starts to snow, so I really want to take advantage of this alone time that I have. That also means that I should be able to get an hour of audiobook listening in first thing like every morning. So the first audiobook that I saw that was available at my local library is Rebecca. This is a bit of an intimidating length of a book, and I think the audiobook was like 14 hours. This is the 80th anniversary edition for anyone who asked. I got it from my local indie bookstore, and maybe I'll read it physically, but I think this might be the book that I read on my walk every morning all week long, and then I should be able to complete it. All I know about this is we're following a woman who falls in love with a widower, and his previous wife is now haunting them or something. I'm not going to take my camera on my walk, but when I come back I'll update you on how it went, and while I'm gone you can watch the footage of reading the BuzzFeed list. I'm not willing to put much time into this intro in case this video turns out to be nothing. 20 must-read mystery thriller novels from BuzzFeed. They put it out at the end of last year. I was busy at that time reading all of the nominees for the Goodreads Choice Awards in the mystery thriller category. The very first thing I'm actually surprised by. It's Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson, which I didn't even know was a thriller. So I already love this list because I learned something. Maureen Johnson's books, I think this is a series. I always assumed they were like a paranormal romance series. Oh my gosh, it's about a private school. Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, which I do agree is a very on the edge of your seat kind of thriller. The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, I understand this one. I don't know if I would put it on the list of like 20 all-time thrillers to be on the edge of your seat, just because it didn't do for me what I know it did for a lot of other people. Next is The Wife Between Us by Greer Hendricks and Sarah Pekkanen, which I want to say is like an underhyped thriller, but it's not. I feel like it's kind of underrated sometimes. Night Film by Marisha Pessel. I don't really agree that this is a suspenseful mystery. The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson. I'm so glad that's on here. It's one of my all-time favorite thrillers. Next is The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware, which I disagree with. Next up is Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell, which I also disagree with. I do agree with this one. There has to be an Agatha Christie on this list. Final Girls by Riley Sager. I do think every other Riley Sager has been better than Final Girls. Next is Rebecca. I have been told so much to read this book lately. I guess it's about this marriage and the shadow of his ex-wife is cast over their marriage. And I've heard it's a little weird, and I'm wondering, like, are we talking in a paranormal way? Is she a ghost? Next up is The Grown Up by Gillian Flynn. I love that that's on here, but I'm surprised that that's the Gillian Flynn on this list. So now that I've seen the list, what are we gonna learn from it? Because I've already read some books on the list and didn't love them. So that pretty much guarantees I'm not gonna love everything on the list or agree that it's one of the top 20 suspenses. I'm home. I am 2 hours into the audiobook, 15% of the way through, and I don't really know what's going on, and that's fine. Our narrator doesn't have a name, which I always like, because normally it's either because there's a twist, because there's like something we don't know, or it's like having some type of commentary about like identity and belonging to other people and not really knowing yourself or something. And I actually think I'm gonna keep listening to it today instead of only on my walks, because I am intrigued and I'm swooning a little bit over their relationship. She is about to be married and be Mrs. De Winter, and I just don't know like if I'm supposed to root for their relationship or if he's a bad guy, or I don't know, but I like their dynamic. She is like a low station individual training to be a companion, and then he just enjoys her company and he's like, hey, come live in my manor and marry me. I'm pretty impressed with how long I've gone not knowing anything about it. Like, this is the 80th anniversary. I know there's film adaptations. I've definitely seen some trailers. It says it's one of the most influential novels of the 20th century, and yet I've never been spoiled. And maybe it's because there isn't actually like a big thing to spoil, or if people are just good about keeping information to themselves. I don't know. Another morning, another good walk, a good routine. I'm getting it together. But now it's hard to get out of the 8 a.m. wake up. I don't want to like talk about how much sleep I used to get, because it's just not healthy to encourage anybody that it's even reasonable to live your life for years getting like 4.5 hours of sleep. But that's where I was at. And now I'm getting 7-8 hours of sleep, and I just feel like a different person. I feel so good that I can read a 430-page classic in 24 hours. I'm almost done with this. I will admit I expected it to be more haunted. It's kind of a different genre than I was expecting, but I tabbed one page that you can see because our narrator does have a name. And it's so weird that it's only mentioned once in the entire book. Or if I'm supposed to understand something I'm not understanding. There was a shocking moment a couple chapters ago, and that's that. I think I'll watch the movie, like tonight, if I can find it on any streaming service. Here's my quick review as the sun sets. I just took my time and watched the movie as well, and I didn't like it. The book, I'm giving a 3.5. I'm gonna round it up to a 4 on Goodreads just so everyone doesn't yell at me. It was super atmospheric. I think that's why everybody loves it, is the description and the tension is so palpable. And I was enjoying it the same physically reading as the audiobook. I have to be honest though, like, I understand people who like this. I get it, I can see it, but people who've been telling me to read this for years and telling me it's gonna be one of my new favorite books, and like the people who this is their favorite book and they reread it like every year, I don't know that I get it. I need to go read some reviews for sure, and maybe I'll also watch the original, because I'm sure if I didn't like the most recent one, you're gonna tell me to go back and watch like the classic Alfred Hitchcock one, which is totally fair. It was a good, I would call it a good read. I'm sorry I don't have any big feelings to share, like good or bad, about the first read of the video. On to my next read, and that is Truly Devious. And when I tell you I have no idea what this is about, like literally nothing, no idea. I know it's a series. I saw the word private school and academy, so that's awesome.
Yeah, you know I keep on running from the truth. Was that not? I'm just a lonely fucking you.
Okay, it's midnight. I haven't updated you all day. I skipped my morning walk, which I feel guilty about, but I made myself feel better by buying myself flowers. Something else new in my routine is I'm trying to go 1 day a week without putting on makeup, which sounds like a very normal thing to normal people, but like I used to put on makeup every day for work, and then Saturday would be like a filming day, so I would put on more makeup than normal, and then Sunday would be like the day that we hang out as a family, and sometimes it was chill days, but mostly it was like going out and getting like errands done and groceries done. So I put on a little bit of makeup, but then when I don't put on any makeup, I don't feel like filming. So I took out my contacts, and now I can't see myself anyway. So it's like nothing's different. I figured it out. My update for reading is I'm halfway through. I haven't updated you at all because like I don't feel anything about this book, and I hate updating you when there's nothing to really say, and especially when I'm not loving a book, because it's just like we all saw this coming. Like I pretty much swore off YA mysteries recently, which is part of the reason why I didn't complete this video, but then like why did I still decide to pick it up and give it a go? I don't know. Since doing this quiz, this book has been recommended to me a good amount of times, because I know you all try so hard to find things that I'm gonna like, and I really appreciate it. What it has going for it is it has a game, so it's like full of riddles, and there's like a mystery that our main character is solving. So she's going to this new school, and there's this whole cast of characters who I find really confusing, and I'm about to start drawing a character map because I feel like I'm supposed to remember all of their names and who they are and whatever. But you choose like the classes that you want to take at this school, and like your passion projects and what you really like care about. And what our main character Stevie cares about is solving like the grand mystery of the entire school. So when the school was originally built, the creator's wife and daughter were kidnapped, and there's this riddle, and the riddle has come up a couple times, and it's super cheesy, but I want to enjoy it. And nowadays, because this was like a long time ago, nowadays Truly Devious, the jokester, the Riddler, is back and like leaving more clues, and I think something bad's about to happen. Okay, final thoughts on Truly Devious. No one is shocked. It's a 3.5, which is fine. Like, I'm not mad about that. I'm not surprised about that. I don't think anyone else is surprised about that. It does feel a little blasphemous that I'm giving both of these the same rating, because like obviously this is a classic and this is just a YA mystery, but they were both on the same list of like must-read thrillers. What I would have done in the actual video, what I would be expected to do is like obviously build my own list, give a final ranking of everything on that list. And here's the thing. Like, I'm just not qualified to do that. I respect the list for what it was. Clearly, there are a lot of people who absolutely love these, and they have their place in literature. Is there a YA thriller that I can think of that is so much better than this that I think everybody would agree with? No. Have I read better YA thrillers for me and my personal taste? Yeah. But I respect the list. There are always going to be mystery and thrillers that take the world by storm, that everyone is reading and everybody's freaking out about, and that I just don't understand. The Girl on the Train is one of them, The Silent Patient is one of them, but there are also a lot of thrillers that I love that other people don't get, and that's totally fair and fine. I see this as for the same audience who loves whatever that series is called by Brittany Cavallaro, something about Charlotte. And then that one I read last year about all of the like daughters of Sherlock Holmes and whoever. And then like the Jack the Ripper series. And I see how it has its place. I thought Stevie as main character was cool. I enjoyed reading from her perspective. I don't mind the romance in here. A lot of reviews I see thought that that was a part they could have done without. The actual mystery itself and the solving of it, that's what didn't totally like... It's not that it didn't work for me, it just didn't do anything for me. And then there was like a twist reveal at the end, and it leaves on a cliffhanger, obviously because it's part of a series and I was expecting that, but the cliffhanger just didn't like leave me wanting to pick up the next one, because the like reveal isn't something that you feel impacted by necessarily, because how do I explain it? There are a lot of other reveals that would have made the ending interesting, but because of certain characters and situations, I'm not emotionally invested at this point. But I know everyone will probably say the series gets better and like everything is solved by the end and that's what makes it good. So that's that. If I want to give a hot take about the list, here's a couple things that I think should have not been on it. And here's a couple things I would maybe add to it. And some of them have come out more recently than the list was even made, so they didn't have a chance to be on it anyway. But I've never thought that I should be the word in like what's good in thrillers. So that's a part of like why this video didn't get followed through with, because there wasn't enough books that I needed to read from the list. I think there's still a couple that I have started and not finished, and I probably would have felt like I had to finish them if I wanted to complete the video. And my expectations were validly low. By the end of reading everything and making the whole video about this list, I probably wouldn't have felt confident in posting it. I'm now going to begin Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
Just behind the stars, but how come the stars don't shine?
So this is about a 450 page philosophy inquiry into values book. It's by Robert M. Pierce, and the title's always stuck in my head because it sounds like a book about motorcycle maintenance. Like, how boring. It's obviously about more than that. It's a penetrating examination of how to live better and the beautiful process for reconciling science, religion, and humanism. I'm 200 pages in and it's lost me. I just like find myself zoning out constantly. First 150 pages, I was like, okay, like I don't really get like the point, but it's at least readable. At this point, I'm just like, what the fuck are we talking about? There's like something that he's trying to teach us through this book. But one thing I have to say is I enjoy nonfiction authors so much more when they have humility, when their like storytelling style is about like, here's how imperfect I was. Here's how imperfect I am. Here's how imperfect we are as humans. But like, here's all the things that we can do to like do better. But you're still never going to be like completely happy or completely satisfied. Whatever the self-help book is trying to tell you. But this guy is so just like, I have all the answers and like, I figured it out. Like, I figured it out. Telling the story about, like riding on his motorcycle and all of these trips, like with his friends and with his son, and all of the conversations that they have and all of the ways that he is better than everyone else basically. And I just don't know if he's like currently trying to say the way that he is behaving and thinking and reacting, if this is like him at his best, or if the purpose of the book is him telling all of these stories where he's an asshole, and then later we're gonna talk about like how he was an asshole and like how he's done better with his life. That's what I don't fully understand, because like he's a dick. Like, he's out with his kid on the road and his kid's like upset about something and he's like crying, and his dad calls him a bastard, and then his kid's like trying to connect with him and he's just like, oh, there's only so much you can listen to a kid, like there's only so much I can deal with, when his kid is just trying to like ask him about his life and like get to know him better because they have this like time together. And now he's referencing some like other people and how he has learned things from other people's writing and their like theories about life, but like their theories about life suck. So I'm gonna take a break, watch some YouTube, and then I'll get back to it. A fun fact about me is normally I skip author introductions. I'll usually go back at the end of the book just to like get more of an idea of things. But I had a thought that maybe it would help out with some reading comprehension, and it did. I'm like 3/4 of the way through and I understand now this idea of like separating like his old self from his new self. Getting beaten down by Western values can like mess up your own consciousness, and it's like getting back to who you were supposed to be. And before you think that I'm saying this because like, oh, I understand the book now, and like let's talk about how good it actually is. This is a full rant review now. I hate it. I hate it so much. I think what we've learned from canceled videos is that the videos should be canceled, and me completing the books in this capacity should not be done because I never should have read this. I'm still not done. The author's note, while giving some clarity, makes me hate it more. And like the the end of the author's note where he talks about like how nobody understands him, it's like too much, because I've been thinking that throughout this book. I've been thinking like he keeps saying these things like, only I fully understand this concept. Like no one in the history of the world has thought about things the way that I'm thinking about things, and now I'm going to bestow my greatness and knowledge upon you. The author is separating himself from the narrator, who's separating himself from his former self. Like, which version of him is really saying these things? Which version of him is like the pompous one? I'm gonna respect the people who love this book, and I really do think that it's about the time in your life in which you read it and the type of person that you are, because I can see how this means something to somebody. If you relate to the person in the stories, then I see how you could get something out of this. But I also feel like that type of person is the type of person that if you don't like it, they'd be like, well, you didn't understand it. It's like, okay, the motorcycle is a metaphor, symbolism for your soul. And like you have to, there's two aspects of consciousness, like enjoying things and understanding things. And when you understand things, you enjoy them more. When you enjoy things, you understand them more. Okay, watching Drive Me Crazy with my members was so much fun. This is like one of those teen movies that I watched as a teenager that holds up. Not many of them do, this one does. It's so funny to me because partially through the live I realized that I was wearing the school colors, and I just thought it was like the coolest thing. Oh my god, I'm wearing the school colors and the colors of the paint that they put in the sprinklers. This is one of my favorite intros. And what I failed to realize is that it's a motorcycle shirt. Like, how did I not make that connection? That's so embarrassing. Enough of my review of this. Like, it's 1 star. I hated it. The misogyny was rampant. I definitely didn't know going into it, well, because it wasn't on my TBR to begin with, that it was gonna be so chaotic with its like structure and style, because I'm used to like the organization of a nonfiction book and just like really loving how things are set up and how things come back and these little moments of realizations. And this didn't do that, because a lot of it is based on his experience struggling with his mental health, and before this trip he had been hospitalized, and that has an impact on how he interacts with his son and, you know, all of the things that he's talking about in here. I just don't think it was done with much nuance that I'm used to. It was like he told a story 100 pages ago, and it was very, in my opinion, clear what the intent of that story was. But then he would like reference it again and be like, remember when I told you that thing 100 pages ago? Here's what it really meant. And it was just like, yeah, like, I didn't think you were telling the story for nothing. Like, it was all a metaphor for this grander point you were making. It's funny that he mentions that 121 people turned this book down before he found an editor who would work off at it. I'm not saying anything about him and his life journey. I think sometimes when there are nonfictions I don't like, I don't do a great job of explaining why I didn't like it, and it comes across like I don't think this person's life experience was worth writing about, or like I don't think that the hard life things they went through like shouldn't have led them down this path. So it's about the style, and it's not for me. I didn't take anything away from the book by the end of it, which is a bummer. But getting back on track of why I was reading this to begin with, the whole point of the original video I mean, it lost focus, so that's why I didn't complete it. I think it's just always interesting to see the books that are seen in shows and movies, because oftentimes, like with the Scarlet Letter, it's a direct impact on the actual plot of the story. And in this one, it was just like, I'll show you the scene.
I want you to have this. This might explain me better than I can.
Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance? This is supposed to explain why you're never around. Wow, must be a hell of a book.
Oh my god, bye. So it was a dad who hasn't connected with his daughter a lot, and he just recommends she reads it. She throws it off the hot air balloon, which is incredible. I actually think having not read the book is probably a better experience for the movie, because then you just interpret it as like, oh, this dad who's uninvolved, who doesn't know anything about his kid, is recommending she reads a book about motorcycle maintenance, and like, what an idiot. But having read the book gives like such a different insight, because that, I don't know, like that dad is very much like the type of person who would read this book and then tell their 16-year-old daughter to read it and expect them to get like impacted by it. But I don't know, her throwing it off the balloon is just so funny. And what I would like to do with this if it wasn't a library book. So I will go gently put it in the drop box and try to wipe it from my memory. 1 star. I really should have picked like any other book, because there are so many books that are directly related to the movie and like are mentioned as something that you could read and maybe have a better insight into a certain character. Tonight I am watching Crazy Stupid Love. I definitely don't recall if there are any books, but since I love all the characters equally, it will be fun to see what they're reading and how that choice by like the production people informed that character. So there's an entire bookshelf of books back there, some coffee table books. I feel like I could pick something just from there. The first book in this movie is called Divorce for Dummies. Who's gonna tell Robbie? I mean, this is the point. This very much informs the character. I don't want to read that.
I think it stands for asshole.
They're reading the Scarlet Letter, which is so weird because one of my movie picks was going to be another Emma Stone classic, Easy A, in which they read the Scarlet Letter. Okay, 10 Things I Hate About You, they already mentioned Hemingway. The Sun Also Rises, and then here's The Bell Jar. I mean, should this count? It's a book. I can't figure out what this one is. Side note, this movie is based off of a play, so I could even read that.
Let's open up our books to page 73, sonnet 141. Listen up. In fact, I do not love thee with mine eyes, but there be 1,000 errors, no.
Last one. Oh, just kidding, it's a sketchbook. This vlog isn't gonna be particularly like thorough and satisfying because I'm picking one book from each movie instead of completing an entire movie. Like I just put together this board for Perks of Being a Wallflower. These are all the books that pop up, and like maybe there's a whole video concept in completing the entire list. Now I don't know what I'm doing. What I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna run into town, and it's a little gloomy out, so not the perfect day. Maybe this is just like all the bad omens are telling me not to complete this video. But the reason I didn't complete it in summer is just like the timing wasn't perfect. But here's a quick clip of what I did film. Also, we were staying at my parents' house because we were in the heat wave and our AC didn't work. So I filmed like the intro to the video while I was there. Welcome to my parents' yard. We're currently experiencing a heat wave in the Okanagan. It's like supposed to be 43 degrees today and my AC is not working, so my house is 30 degrees. I was born and raised in the Okanagan, but I've never read a book set in the Okanagan, besides I think one short story that mentioned the Ogopogo once in one of the worst short story collections I've ever read. I wanted to find some things that were set around here and then I could possibly take you different places and show you things. However, the heat wave, and also because of the heat wave there are forest fires starting and there's a lot of smoke, so I don't know if the visuals, the aesthetics of this, the tour portion that I dreamed is gonna be what it could be. Finding the right lighting and sound to film in here has been challenging, but I'm going to show you all the books that I picked up. I don't actually know how much of this is based in the Okanagan or what part of the Okanagan, but we're going to discover that together. And then these four are all local authors that I had to specifically special request. And based on the timeline of the website, it said that it was going to take like, I think 2 to 3 months to show up. So I ordered these like maybe 4 or 6 months ago, and then they literally showed up the next day. So I've been holding on to these for so long. This one is called Little Fortress by Leisha Rosnow, and it says it's based on a true story of Italian nobility driven into exile by the rise of fascism. One of the most well-known Okanagan stories, I guess, is called Anna's Secret. This is the options that I had, okay? Anna Clark has faced loneliness for years, caring for a sick and distant husband, recently widowed with all that brought meaning to her life gone. The consummate good girl falls from grace in a moment of weakness and passion. So I also picked up 2 things that I can read. I know this one I can for sure read with Liam. I think I can read this one with Liam as well. I live on the unceded territory of the Okanagan Silex people, and I wanted to pick up some Silex stories because who better to discuss the location and Okanagan language. So this one is from a series that I've seen around. I think some of these were actually in Liam's classroom, and it's lessons from Beaver's work. And then this one says We Are the People, a trilogy of Okanagan legends. It says this edition is a collection of original legends with time-honored lessons for children, the values of sharing and respect, told in strongly rhythmic language and featuring the Okanagan language in this new revised edition. The stories will read aloud well and can be used to help children think about the values of sharing, self-sacrifice, and reverence for life in all forms. So shout out to the one local indie bookstore we have that's been in Kelowna for so long, Mosaic Books, for stocking some local authors. I have a kitty rubbing against my leg. I don't know if you want to see him. I'm assuming you do. This is the beautiful kitty cat Dexter. He's the nicest, sweetest kitty. I've never even heard him meow. But I'm headed into town to run some errands, and fall is obviously pretty in the Okanagan, even if it's raining, I think. So my walk for today is gonna be downtown Kelowna, maybe by the lake. We'll go to my indie bookstore, and I desperately need coffee. Like, I need coffee so bad. I know everyone will just tell me to make coffee from home, and controversial opinion, I guess that's this video. Like, let's just put out all of my hot takes and really make people not understand me in this video. But like, I don't like the smell of coffee. I really don't. Like a fresh brewed pot of coffee, I don't see the appeal. I get iced coffee, I can't smell it. It's like when people say that they love the smell of like a newborn baby. I told you all of my hot takes in one video. I don't get it. I do not get it. Like, smelling a baby? No. So let's recap. I'm not introspective. I'm not loving and maternal. I'm not smart enough to enjoy classic novels. Like, what are my other flaws that we can go over today? Okay, it's pouring rain, so I don't really know where to take you. That would be considered an Okanagan staple today in the rain, but I'll show you. This is the mall. I actually took that clip another day for another video. Ooh, in that childhood video I talked about Bean Scene, and a lot of you thought the Bean Scene was a cute name, so let me show you Bean Scene. Here's a staple for me. Yisk. I'm going to buy a bedspread because I literally just this morning on TikTok saw a duvet cover, and I decided to buy it just based on this one girl's TikTok.
Soon, I don't wanna wait no more.
Okay, this is my favorite street to drive down, especially in fall. All the trees like hang over the street, and it's so pretty. And then at the end, you can kind of see the sails.
Really matter where we stay, don't cause space makes me sad. Cause space makes me sad. Feeling like Pluto, you already knew though. I'm hiding just behind the stars, but how come the stars don't shine when it's day? How come the sky at night makes me this way?
The rain has really attacked my hair. But here are my wins for the day. This is my new duvet. That rhymed. I got 3 books. The Wild Ones is one of my favorite like YAs of the year. I had an ARC and I wanted to support by buying the final copy. I picked up The Last House on Needless Street, which just came out. I'm reading this for Gabby's book club in October, so I needed one. And then I picked up The Twisted Ones. Everyone's been telling me to read this by T. Kingfisher because I love the Hollow Ones. It's not related, I don't think, at all, but it sounds right up my alley, and I don't think I'm gonna get to it this season, but like it was just sitting there staring at me, so I got it. I also picked up a tea from Bean Seed, and it's everything I remember. I haven't gotten this in so long. There are, I think, 4 locations in Kelowna. If you ever come here, I don't know, stop in. And that's it. I'm gonna drive home. I'm actually listening to my next book on audio, but when I get home, I'll get back to Anna's Secret. I was gonna read like Out and About, Sit by the Lake, but it's wet. I don't want to be mean about this book. I really don't. Like, that's the last thing that I want to do. Actually, the last thing I want to do is read it. I'm kidding. Can I just ask, like, oh, you can see my 3rd caffeine of the day. Can I just ask a couple questions? What do people read books like this for? Like, what does it do? What does it do for you? Because, like, I understand people who read adult romance for like the romance and the tension and like the slow burn. Like, I get that type of romance. I get the type of romance that's like smutty. Like, I understand. But the romance that's like rooted in just like sucky circumstances where you're just reading about like a sad woman, like, what does it do? Because they already had sex in the first 20 pages and it was a fade to black sex scene, which I was not expecting. I understand it's like, do we call this Christian fiction? I don't know. But I guess I was expecting it to be like about her faith and then her deciding to just like involve herself with this man anyway, and then it would get sexy. I just don't read enough books. I did not know what I was getting into. But there have been references to where I live, and that's what I wanted, and I got it. There was a little mention of UBC and UVic, which is where her grown sons go to school, and now she's pregnant. Her husband dies at the beginning, and then she gets pregnant. I really thought this was going to take a lot longer. That her husband was going to die, that she was going to get involved with this new guy, and that she was going to get pregnant. But we've already been through 8 months of her life in 60 pages. And I just like don't understand what's gonna happen here. Like, is she gonna have the baby and then connect with this guy? And then is it gonna get romantic? The romantic interest is a doctor, and after they have sex and she doesn't talk to him for a while, he reaches out to her and he goes, I've researched Christianity now and I understand what your hesitation was for premarital sex. And it's like, what? You're a 40-year-old doctor man and you didn't know that Christians don't have what? The next reference was where she's meeting up with her late husband's mother at the fanciest restaurant in town, which is Hotel El Dorado. I was just there a couple months ago for a work lunch, so sure. Okay, you'll only get this if you watched my most recent vlog. Oh my god, stop looking at me. But it says right here that he's aggravated at the bottleneck on the bridge. One of the world's longest floating bridges. This bridge is important to my villain origin story. Just like I had a recent photo of the restaurant that was mentioned, I also have a photo of the church that's just been mentioned. At least I think, because it described like the part of town and how there's been like a renovation on part of it. Anyway, I went to a wedding here. It's one of the only churches that I've seen with a steeple, which is how it was described. And I was at a wedding here a couple summers ago. So super cool. Do I have to keep reading this? Be honest. There was just a birth scene where like they roll up at the hospital and like the second they get there, they find out she's bleeding and they like look at her doctor boyfriend and they're like, you have to choose her or the baby. I get it though. I think this is for the same audience who enjoys Hallmark movies, which I've also never understood. There have been a good amount of ones filmed in the Okanagan. I've never gone through with watching one, but I'm not even halfway. I can't do it anymore. Why am I suddenly reading about a 16-year-old getting pregnant and going to Anna, considering an abortion, and being advised by a grown woman that keeping the baby's gonna be just fine because she just did it, so everything's gonna be fine. Okay, now of course there's another woman in the picture who is competing for the attention of hot Dr. Matt, and she's the only non-religious person in the book. So of course, once he's decided to become Christian, she bombards him at work and says, "You won't be the first Christian I made forget all about his God," wiggling her bosom in confidence. Then he shuts the door between them and she says, "Toodles, darling. God has never kept a bed warm, but I sure have." Okay, at first this book was just like a funny, silly thing, but I'm actually getting mad. This pregnant 16-year-old is reaching out to Anna for help again, and Anna's saying, "You can talk to me, like, talk to me, let's talk about it." And this girl is asking for direct advice. She's like, "You went through all of this drama because the entire like church people judged you. How did you deal with that? Like, how do I deal at my high school with everyone gossiping about me and lying about me and judging me?" And instead of actually offering her advice, she says, "I don't know what to say, but you know what? God's greater." Like, that's not helpful. And then she's like, "I wish I had an abortion. Like, maybe I should still get an abortion." And Anna's like, no. Don't think for yourself. Let me tell you what you think. Getting near to the end of this, and obviously going into this, I did not have the correct expectations, and I should just DNF it instead of ranting, because I'm going to say something that's going to offend somebody. I just feel like the point of a book like this is for people to pick up and feel more connected to their religion, right? Like, you see a woman persevering and her belief and her faith is what gets her through, and like that's what makes it powerful for somebody to read, and that's great. So like, how does it make sense that this book would do, like, this book wouldn't do that? Because every single like upsetting thing in their lives is due to their faith. The reason she lied to everybody, and the reason she's choosing not to be with this man, and the reason this teenage girl, that she wasn't on birth control, the reason that so many people are judging and hating, even though they're acknowledging that everything that they want are like normal and natural things, like their unhappiness seems really rooted in their faith. Okay, so I hated it, but I know you haven't read it, so it would be easy for you to assume that my issues are related to the genre in general and not the specific like takes of the book. And even if the takes in the book do align with the values, I'm not taking direct issue with the values, okay? The only other references that I got to enjoy are a mention of the Greenway, which is a big like path that I walked a lot as a teenager, and then a mention of Moolix, which is spelled wrong. I'm definitely unintentionally lumping this together in an entire genre. So like, when I say I don't know why this works for people, I have no evidence that this specific book has worked for people. And I really hope the author never sees my review, because like, it's not for me, and that's fine. I just don't, yeah, I don't get it. I don't get what this does, what this could do. I don't get the point. There was no romance, there was no tension, there was no like interest, like they didn't really have personalities. She knew this guy for like 2 years and didn't even know his birthday, and then agreed to be engaged and then found out his birthday in that conversation. But like, they had been like sharing their time with their daughter over the last year. There was nothing about like having a newborn, but like, this is about pregnancy and having a baby and like trying to navigate all of that while figuring out what you're gonna do in your romantic life as a Christian woman. But she just never seemed like unhappy or like she was going through hard stuff. Even though she was, it was never about the hard stuff that she was going through. It was about how she was being perceived going through that hard stuff by the church. And I hate this guy. We got like 4 conversations with him, and he was kind of an asshole in all of them. And every single time they saw each other, he was just trying to like get with her. Even like 2 months after their baby was born, and they had like barely communicated, and then he just showed up, and then she said something about her body opening up like a flower, and it frightened me. I don't want to give this a rating because people will judge me. Oh my, me and Anna are the same. 1 star. I'm gonna read those other 2 quick books with Liam.
Worst of all, that rancher diverted all the silk from the creek. Stunks began to rebuild the broken dam.
Hey, let's start again. My name's Stunks and I have something to show you. My name's Tappet. You have something to show me?
He looked so decided and motioned for Tappet to come closer and declared, I have a separate pooping lodge and do my business there. You humans poop in the same house you live in and eat in, you nasty humans.
She's a Mona Lisa. Everyone's lining up.
Okay, on to the last combined concept. It was reading booktuber favorites and also copying other booktubers for the month. The footage from this is completely chaotic and I might have to pop in later to try to like piece together what was really happening. But what I'm doing is I'm going to read 2 books from booktubers favorites lists. So I actually started the Maidens yesterday while I was out and about because I had the audiobook. It was actually kindly sent to me by Macmillan earlier this year as like an early access to the audiobook. Oops, so sorry. But now I'm reading the physical copy. The audiobook is actually really, really good. This didn't have an audiobook, so while I was driving into town today, I decided to listen to an audiobook. I have the Maidens since I just read a physical book and then I'm reading a physical book. This in between seemed like a nice idea. The first little bit is very unsettling. It's about a woman who's a group therapist and there's somebody in the group who is not respecting boundaries and who is like causing tension in the group and being dangerous. And then also her husband has recently died and her sister-in-law has a friend who's missing. I don't know how all these things are tied together or what's going on, but I just wanted to check in. I think it's really fun. I think it's interesting. I'm really glad I didn't read the full synopsis because something just shocked me and then I read the synopsis and it's in the synopsis. I thought it was going to be kind of a straightforward mystery and then some other things are happening. There are also little like bonus journal kind of chapters. And there are so many characters that the journal could belong to, like that's part of the mystery. And I definitely have my theories, but the book is doing a great job of introducing so many different characters and there's so many different things going on. And I just hope I'm not let down by any of the reveals, which seems to be the feedback that I've seen, is that people don't think it's like shocking or twisty or anything. It's just kind of easily predicted. So this video was pretty much doomed from the start. I've been looking through some of the footage and like I can't even piece it together well because it was so chaotic, and a lot of times like video concepts evolve as I'm trying to make them work. And a lot of times, a little secret to my channel is like I don't film the intro to my video until like I'm into the video because I don't know if concepts are gonna work, so I just like film shit, and then if things start to work then I'll go back and I'll film the intro. For this one, I think I was a week into the month before I even had a TBR, which is pretty much when I knew it was already failing, but I still tried to make it work for another week. I have sneakily found out some of Meg's upcoming reads because she's doing a live and she's talking about reading House of Leaves, which we're reading together. So I asked her in the live to give us a little insight on what else she just happens to be reading in March.
Yeah, well, I plan out my vlogs, but I actually think a lot of my March... What are my March videos at the moment?
Weren't you going to read Six of Crows?
Yeah, I'm reading Six of Crows and Cookie Kingdom in the first week.
I've been trying to gather some intel on some various booktubers to see who it kind of reads similar to me, but will make me step outside what I normally read a little bit. Also, I have to pick somebody who, like, isn't reading a ton of arcs or isn't reading a ton of like book of the month picks that I can't get my hands on, and not picking someone who only reads like 4 books a month but doesn't read like 50 books a month. Also, I have to pick somebody who's reading my book club pick for the month. I'm only allowed to read books that I see one of my 3 people reading. I have to at all times be reading something that one of the 3 is reading. So I know that Meg is reading a couple books I've already read this month. I know that she's reading 3 thrillers. One of them I've already read and the other 2 I just grabbed. I was almost certain that I was going to read Chanel. Then today I just realized she's participating in like this fantasy kind of readathon that Erin is running, and I got really overwhelmed by looking at the books that she had selected. But Molly just went live reading House of Leaves, which is the Literally Dead Book Club pick, and I need the motivation to get into this. I read the first like 5 pages and I got really overwhelmed. What I didn't foresee is that House of Leaves would fuck things up for a lot of us and our reading, and also that March was just like the month for everybody, I feel like, in the book community to like not read or not update what they're reading. So people who typically have their TBR out on like the 1st of the month just like didn't. And then also sometimes like when I watch someone's TBR and maybe they have like a sponsorship or they're featuring a bunch of books, like I don't really know if that's on their TBR or not. So with Gabby, I think she listed like 10 books at the beginning for book of the month, and I didn't know which one she was actually gonna read, so I didn't know which ones to add to my TBR. So I found out what Meg was reading in a live and I picked up both of those books like immediately, but then she like didn't update any of her reading. So at this point, like current day, I have a list of like 10 books that I would like to read for this canceled videos vlog. I feel like the person I abandoned the most in this process is Chanel, because like I did end up reading House of Leaves with people. I obviously have the Maidens going, and I'm literally the dumbest person alive because I was about to tell you that I was gonna read this because it's the one thing I saw her reading in March, but I just realized she gave us 1 star. That's so embarrassing. Why did I think she loved it? Okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read a 5-star she gave out this year. She read this in June and gave it 5 stars. Molly also gave this 5 stars and Gabby gave it 4 stars. What did I actually end up reading in March? Like, was it worth it canceling this video? Did I read good things instead? Oh, March is the month where I barely read anything because I didn't have a TBR. It's okay. I'm almost finished with this and I really like it, and I hope that the ending is what I'm hoping for. Okay, I couldn't find a sweater that matched my shirt, so don't judge my Christmas vibes, but I also just got this in the mail from Redbubble. I once tried to be a Redbubble affiliate, and they, I think, required like 200,000 page views a month on like your website, so that was really embarrassing. Look, it's Goosebumps. Please don't fall, camera. I am off to drive my mom to pick up her vehicle from like a, what do you take your vehicle to do? Maintenance, the dealership. I'm picking up Liam from school, taking him to hockey. Oh, she's already here. I finished this. I'm trying to figure out if I can finish this before the end of the day. No, you can't get in. I wasn't ready for you yet.
Go back in the house room?
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to multitask by taking pictures for the book charm shop while telling you what I thought of the Maidens. This is our, you can't see it very well, but this is our like Halloween collection. It's hard to find the perfect like Halloween-y charms. There's a couple really spooky ones of skeletons. Oh, and this I have washed 3 times with all like baking soda and vinegar and salt things to try to soften it, and it worked a little bit. So now it's cozier. So here's the thing about the Maidens. I wonder, are you expecting me to love it or hate it? Guess what? I liked it. I liked it a lot. With that said, it's not without its faults. And just like I don't feel the need to defend my opinion on Rebecca versus all of the glowing reviews, I don't feel the need to like fight anyone on their low rating of the Maidens, because I really do get it. There's a lot of things that like aren't fully explored, a lot of storylines that kind of go nowhere. I think especially our main character isn't written to be somebody, oh, card full? I think she is written as someone that you're supposed to like and understand and like feel for, and I don't think that that was the most successful for a lot of people. She does a lot of things that don't make sense. There are things that are overly convenient. It's definitely one of those like a bit over the top mysteries that just get to be a little too much, like unbelievable at a lot of points too, and like some things kind of come out of nowhere. I don't agree with the people who say that it's really boring. I was interested the entire time. The 2 things I look for: entertainment and to be surprised. And I was surprised. I think sometimes when you're talking about twists in a thriller, like some people will think you're stupid for not seeing something coming. But I don't know, I didn't see all of the twists coming. Sometimes I give a book 4 stars and I'm like, I don't really know what it could have done to get 5. Like, it just didn't feel like a 5. With this one, I know exactly everything that it could have done differently to be a 5. I did think that the Maidens would be more of the focus of the story. As someone who just like vaguely, briefly read the synopsis and hasn't really watched reviews of it, I definitely assumed that it was like the Maidens and we were going to focus on all like 6 of those characters and they were all going to be like the main focus of the story, just like if we were villains in the Secret History. But that's definitely not the case. Like, they're involved in the mystery for sure, and part of the mystery is that there's like this teacher of the Maidens who is being suspected of the crime, but it's not like this multiple POV going through the heads of all of these girls and like finding out things about them individually. Like, that's just not what it is. One thing that I'll say about like I don't know, European mystery thrillers is something I appreciate that a lot of them stay away from is the miscommunication trope. There was like 5 different times in this book that I thought we were about to head into one of those like stupid moments where a character's like, I think I know what's going on, but like I'm just gonna be interrupted by somebody else and therefore wait a week before I actually have this conversation that I need to have. Or like, this person is telling me this fact and instead of going to the source and asking them, I'm just gonna like be in my own head about it for pages and pages and pages. But no, like the character went and figured out everything she needed to figure out, talked to all the right people, took initiative, like didn't let people convince her of things. She was very convinced that this teacher was the murderer. Her being a psychotherapist is the reason why she does a lot of things, but then there's quite a few things that you don't fully believe that she would do. I would highly recommend the audiobook. I think that is like the best way to consume this. The chapters are so short and sometimes they can feel like annoyingly short for no reason because it is the same scene for 5 chapters, but like every time somebody finishes a sentence, it'll start a new chapter and it's just kind of pointless. So the audiobook is really good at keeping things going and not feeling like these big chapter breaks. That's my thoughts on this. I'm really glad I liked it. And now I'm moving on to Ace of Spades by Farida Abike Amide. This is like Gossip Girl meets Get Out. In the very, very beginning, there are quotes directly from those 2 things. There's fun things to look at. Class schedule. I don't know if there will be more throughout this, but we're following 2 students. What are their names? Chiamaka and Devon. And they're both students at this academy and I really don't know. But I'm hoping I can get through it by the end of the day when I'm trying to post this video. Wish me luck.
Baby year deflates for 15 years.
15-year warranty. Rob brought home a new mattress. It's very exciting. Wow! I'll just live out here now. Okay, the end of the vlog is gonna be a little low energy. 1, it's 11 o'clock at night. 2, I have to be a little quiet because Rob is sleeping. But I'm determined to finish this. I think I have, like, where'd it go? 80 to 100 pages left. I'm gonna need a nap tomorrow, which is currently sitting here expanding. We're supposed to leave it for a day to like puff up because it came rolled up. Anyway, it's going well. Things are picking up. I think a lot's gonna happen in this last quarter. I understand the pace, like I think it's done intentionally, just like what I thought about when no one is watching, is I can understand like the purpose for why the beginning was so slow and why the ending is going to be so much action and so fast, but it definitely has dragged a little bit. But like this book just makes you so angry. It's supposed to, the main point of it is shedding a light on like institutional racism, and what the characters are going through is just like so fucking infuriating the entire time. Reading it in one day was definitely a choice. Also, don't have the dust jacket because again, it's in the bedroom where someone else is sleeping, so I don't know, but I need to like look up where this author's from, because I think it's supposed to be set in the States, but there are certain like writing and word choices that feel British. I did it. I finished it. The video's over. I feel like I've been reading this book selection for so long, and I didn't realize until just now that I read 3 like academic books. I didn't plan for it to go that way. I almost called it dark academia. I know it's not dark academia, but like I just want to call everything dark academia that's like intense and takes place at a school. So whatever. I learned that the author is British, but the setting isn't supposed to be any specific location. So I'm fine. I'm on board. Anyway, I'm giving it, I don't have my contacts in, but I think you can see that I'm not wearing pants. Try to stay very still for this last clip. I'm giving it 4 stars. Yeah, my 3.5 for the first 2 books I read is starting to seem a little bit high now, but 4 stars seems right for this. Did you know that this author is like 21, 22 years old? This means she wrote the book when she was like 19. That's wild. I did not know that. So what I loved about the book, it gives you all of the emotions that you think it's going to. It covers a lot of topics. We have 2 queer main characters, which I didn't know going into it. The whole situation is like a hyperbolized version of reality. So it's a little over the top, but intentionally so, to drive home a very clear message. That's what's really strong about it. I think the intent of the book is very clear. Part of me wants to say that like certain things didn't get enough time, but I think that the length was split. It was split well amongst all of the things that she wanted to cover. Sorry, my memory card was full. Popped in a new one. It's tough because sometimes a big critique of YA is that the characters aren't dynamic enough. Like there's not enough going on in their lives. We don't find out enough about like everything, every portion of their life. And that's what this book did so well. We covered parents, family, friendships, relationships, this like the aces who are revealing secrets about people in the school and targeting people, and then also them like working together and solving this mystery, and also the pressures of going to school and getting good grades and like choosing a college. And you had a really broad look at these characters and what their lives looked like, and I think that's great. It's something that's missing from a lot of YA, especially mysteries that I read. But the thing is, now that I've learned, you know, if you're gonna include all of those things, the book has to be longer, because we got to learn about all of these characters and all of these hobbies and interests, but then they were just over so quickly and we were on to the next thing. So as someone who hates series, like I'm glad this wasn't a series, but as a series, it could have explored things more. Like there are some characters I feel like were really wasted. And then also there's a couple moments where it feels like they were edited. Like they might have been a bigger scene and more might have happened and more that kept with the tone of the rest of the book. But instead, like the scene was just over in a couple seconds and it felt like it was over quicker than the book wanted it to be to tell the story. I wasn't necessarily surprised by anything, so I wouldn't call this like a twisty thriller. I think you get the idea of what's going on kind of from the very beginning. I guess if you've read things like this before. But there was enough interesting stuff that it wasn't at the top of my list, the need to be shocked. For a YA mystery thriller to get 4 stars though, like, is really good in my book. And that's the end of the video. It had its ups and downs. I'm glad I got to revisit some things. Maybe I regret revisiting some things. Editing this is going to be a whole mess, and I'm going to see you in a couple more days for a whole nother vlog. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you later. Bye.